Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I'm going to share with you perspective from multiple analysts in this latest Moon Lambo hot jam, including one XRP chart analyst who argues that XRP is the, quote, most primed coin in the market by far, end quote. And it's hard to argue with that. I mean, 6.5 freaking years of consolidation, legal clarity. Look at all the metrics. I mean, we've been talking about this quite a lot within the community. I've certainly been covering all sorts of various metrics that the analyst types follow on this channel. It does look primed. This is the most primed it's looked since the all-time high 6.5 years ago. That's just a matter of fact so far as I'm concerned. I got some other stuff for you too that I think is going to make you pretty optimistic for what's going to be coming in the short to midterm. But before going further ado, to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say are right. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. As I record this video, it is 1:25 p.m. Central Time, Friday, August 16th, 2024. XRP at 56 cents, Bitcoin at $59,325. So we continue to be range bound. Won't stay here forever, but not surprisingly, especially given the dip. I mean, you guys remember the most recent mega dip from, called a mega dip, over in the very short term. But it was what, August 5th or 6th? Ever since then, market's not been that optimistic, which as far as I'm concerned is fantastic because you don't see a ton of fear at the top of markets. You see a blind euphoria. Now, that, mind you, that's a time when you should be fearful if you got a head on your shoulders, but the market is what it is, and they get wrong-footed consistently as a result of their irrational exuberance and unreasonable fear at the bottom of markets. And so here we have the crypto and fear and greed index at 27 out of 100, so market participants, broadly speaking, are in fear. I want to share with you briefly this post from Jurrien Timmer, who is the Director of Global Macro at Fidelity. And so I find data fascinating that has to do specifically with how markets perform in election years. And so this chart, it's titled Presidential Cycle Down Midterm Year, is on your screen here. And Jurrien Timmer is thinking that perhaps the best is yet ahead. And it's just so fascinating how, although history doesn't literally repeat, it just kind of rhymes with itself, and these patterns develop, and humans behave specific ways at specific points of various cycles. And in this case, here we see how things play out in an election cycle. And he writes, the presidential cycle, which holds that years 3 and 4 are the strongest, we are now in month 8 of the 4th year, which suggests that most of the tailwinds are now behind us. And what's being tracked here is the S&P 500. And this data is going back on this chart back to 1900, weekly data since the year 1900. So that's a sufficient sample size of data, I think it's fair to say. So although nobody technically knows for sure what happens, and there can always be black swan events, if you just want to play the odds and make have a reasonable suspicion that perhaps history is going to more or less rhyme with itself, then we're probably going to have some pretty good times ahead in the short to midterm. There's also this post from chart analyst Dom, and this one I find incredibly important and fascinating. He's talking about the Russell 2000, which is a small cap stocks. It's just an index, and it's not been performing as hot as the S&P 500. And so we've been talking about this a lot because in his estimation, it might be rather primed. So here's what he wrote. Russell 2000. After a massive rejection at the 786, the Russell 2000 may have just retested its breakout. A strong continued rally back to last month levels would basically confirm a soon-to-be all-time high breakout. Remember, altcoin market has never seen expansion without Russell 2000 in price discovery mode. Okay, so that last sentence is why I highlight this on my channel. That's the reason it's important to you if you're a holder of cryptocurrency, including, most importantly for me and for many of you, XRP. If you want to see XRP go, understand XRP has never gone on a massive run to new all-time highs by itself. It's gone when the market is hot. And so, understand there's never been an alt season unless you're also seeing expansion in the stock market. So the stock market also needs to be hot. And it's not surprising we see that correlation consistently, because when there's more money out there, and I'm going to talk about liquidity again in just a second because I've got some more important data for you, but an increase in liquidity is what causes people to be willing to take on more risk when it comes to investments in stocks in the crypto asset class, because these are risk on assets. And so the large cap ones are considered to be less risky, but as there's more money available, people go further out the risk curve. That leads to alt season. So if the Russell 2000 is going to break out, then get your happy dance ready, because there has historically been that correlation for alt season. And you know, I saw the other day the blockchain backer was talking about how, in his estimation, it looks to him like the Russell 2000 is in an accumulation pattern. He expects it to maybe trade sideways for perhaps the next couple weeks or so. But that's certainly a positive take right there. And it is true that recently the Russell 2000 looks like it broke out, and fine, it came down a bit since then. But retests happen. So if indeed we're going to see a continuation, that's where it would make a ton of, if we see it come see that back, that's where it makes a ton of sense to be incredibly happy and excited and just bullish in general. Now, I'm bullish right now regardless, because I'm just playing the odds here. I understand with the current macro environment and where we are in the cycle that historically, that means that we're at the precipice of the best times of the cycle. I think it really is in all likelihood that close. And so there was also this post from Dr. Magic, and this is another chart that just tears the Bitcoin halving narrative to shreds. Here Dr. Magic says, see the correlation between Bitcoin and global liquidity year over year, and you will understand why I am excited AF about the quoted chart. And you can see, if you're looking at the screen right here, exactly what he's talking about. When we're talking about so he said global liquidity. Yes. And so what he's charted here is the world major bank M2 money supply year over year %. That's what's in orange here. So the M2 money supply is the most liquid money out there. And then you have Bitcoin, that's the blue chart here. And you might notice that these things have a very high level of correlation consistently. Why is that? Well, like I said, as liquidity increases, money's got to go somewhere. It gets thrown into the stock market, gets thrown into crypto. And the more money there is, the further investors go out the risk curve, which leads to the Russell 2000 expanding, as well as alt season ultimately. And it doesn't exactly correlate down to the minute, the second, the day, the week, the month necessarily, but if you give it long enough time period on a chart and you zoom out, you can absolutely see it. So all of this stuff is lining up. And he shared this chart, and so this is the M2 money supply against the US dollar index, and he's charting this. You can see he charted here a symmetrical triangle. He has strong expectation that M2 is going to break out against the dollar index here. And so he wrote, you can't imagine how excited I am about this chart. Now, why is he excited about that chart? Well, I think that this separate chart shared by chart analyst Rickus pretty well highlights and explains exactly why he's excited. Because there's an inverse correlation. So if M2 is going to break out against the dollar index, well, look at what's on your screen right now. Look what Rickus shared. World M2 money supply of major central banks. And what you'll notice is that this is actually an inverse correlation. So if M2 is going to go up and dollar index going down, and that's what he sees in the charts, that's the reason that he's excited. So we'll see how this plays out. But there's all sorts of factors that I keep highlighting on the channel to indicate that it's reasonable to believe that the M2 money supply for real world reasons is going to keep going in that direction. I mean, I've cited stuff even from Jury and Timmer recently about that. Again, he's no slouch. There's a reason he's with Fidelity, one of the most well-respected people in the world of finance, broadly speaking. There's a reason also people in crypto like me like to follow him. So take it for what it's worth, but that's why I keep saying, if you're in crypto, be aware of all this stuff. This is setting the table, and I want to talk specifically about XRP stuff, certainly, but you've got to understand the broader context of all this and why it matters. Because it's not just an XRP world, it's a macro world, okay? And liquidity is king. There's this post from Charting Guy, and he said, I will continue to say this. Nobody is ready for Q4 and Q1 in crypto. 5 to 20x plus on altcoins across the board. Green candles soon, family. T-minus 6 weeks, in my opinion. Yeah, and so I won't be surprised if that comes to be correct. You know, timeline aside, I won't be surprised if directionally that's where we go. And saying 5 to 20x across the board on alts, won't be surprised if that's the case also. Now, I don't expect that most coins are going to be hitting new all-time highs, but as far as the multiplier effect, sure, that doesn't sound unreasonable at all. And so that's why, like, you know, a lot of the stuff that I bought earlier this year as prices dipped, I kind of just figured, you know what, this is like the cherry on the top. It's the icing on the cake, whatever metaphor you prefer. And I'll, like, a lot of that stuff, to be honest with you, because I already wasn't counting on it. That just opportunities present itself. I earned more money. Fine, I bought more. I might be willing to sell some of that at a lower multiple, like 4 or 5x, because the vast majority of what I'm holding, I mean, God, like, the reason my crypto is worth what it's worth is because I've been here a long time. I've been here almost 7 years, and I'm just sitting here holding because that's what it takes to be successful in investing. So yeah, anywhere in there, some of that I'll be excited for. But just don't expect most coins to hit a new all-time high. Now, XRP, though, I would be shocked if XRP doesn't hit a new all-time high. Now, I don't make price predictions, and I admit I could be wrong. I'm just sharing with you what I'm expecting and what I think is most probable, because XRP's been in consolidation mode for so damn long. And you know, with the legal clarity, I mean, even if you think that utilities is what drives this, and I don't over the short term, over the long haul, the coins that have utility, yes, that matters, that will drive price. But if you're talking, this is the state of things, what happens in the coming X number of months now that we're at this portion of the bull cycle, it's about liquidity. It just is. Money pumps in, money goes into everything, right? But here's a post from Dr. Magic. And he said, you need to take charting guy here. He said, saw your comment about Bollinger Bands getting tighter on monthly. So here is a very interesting chart. And so Bollinger Bands, obviously, that's another metric that we've been looking at pretty heavily since, especially since April. There were a couple chart analysts that started talking about it, and then everybody knows, like, oh, wow. Because the Bollinger Band's tightest in history now. The last time they were anywhere near this tight was in 2017, before XRP had its massive blow-off. Where it ultimately ran from, you know, some very low lows all the way up to almost $4. And Bollinger Bands, although they're not in and of themselves an indicator of whether not something's going to go up or down, the tighter they get, the more clear it is that there's going to be a break sooner or later, a more notable. And so the tighter the bands, the bigger the greater the break will be. And given that we're in this environment that is bullish, that's broadly speaking why I'm optimistic. We're going to see when it does break, it'll be a massive move to the upside. And that's why also all the XRP price action in between, it's just noise so far as I'm concerned. But then he said, used XRP Dominance to filter all the noise that XRP USD creates. XRP shows clear outperformance of the market while reversing from a level it always preceded the biggest pumps with monthly volatility at all-time lows. Most primed coin, the market, by far. Yeah, so that sounds about right to me. And XRP I've been outperforming the market recently by a lot. But seriously, by a lot. I don't have the data for this video, but I pulled it up recently, and I think it was like number 2 out of the top 120 coins for whatever time period was highlighted. It may have been like a 1 or 2 month period. I can't remember now. But suffice it to say, XRP dramatically outperforming other top coins out there by a lot. It's not even close. And you shouldn't be surprised. After it's been beaten down and consolidated for so long, it makes sense to expect something like that. So the fact that we're seeing this, not surprising at all. There is also this post from Crypto Insight UK. Updated wave count on XRP. Are we going to get the chance to buy in the gray box again? And so that might sound scary to you. It's short-term price action, so it wouldn't scare me if that happens, though I don't know if it will. But the gray box is somewhere around, call it roughly 46 to maybe low 50-something cent range. So he's questioning, might we actually get that? And he got some interesting responses, and they're not positive, not all of them. And so he reposted that this morning, and he said, look at the emotion in the comment section. People are giving up. I wouldn't imagine we have long to go before we see something positive. And it is interesting to note that when people start having those types of negative comments and that negative sentiment, that's another trait that you would expect to see before things start popping off. The sentiment is at its worst when price is at its lowest, and you can look at the relative strength index, you can look at Bollinger Bands, pick your metric, XRP Dominance, Everything on paper might look its worst to the typical person out there, resulting in negative bitching all over the internet. But that's when XRP goes historically. That's why it makes sense to be more optimistic here, not negative. Then there is also this from Crypto Insight UK. I want to make something clear to everyone. XRP Dominance gained quite a bit last month. This means in a relative sense, XRP outperformed many, like it or not. As you can clearly see here, when XRP musters up the strength to break key resistance levels like the one we're at now, it normally sends it. Years of negative price action for a few months in the green. Could go as high as 30% of the total market cap of crypto if history repeats. As an XRP holder, you should be cheering for expansion in crypto. The larger the market cap gets, the more larger the potential for, he means larger, and he actually corrected himself there. The larger the potential for price appreciation in XRP. And so that's certainly true. That's the reason I started my video talking about macro stuff before getting specifically into XRP. Because if you care about XRP, you should care about understanding that stuff first. I sure as hell do. And so what he states here is correct. You better be hoping for expansion in crypto markets. And that's going to happen if there's expansion with small cap stocks, because those two things go together like spaghetti and meatball, or perhaps lamb and tuna fish. Extra bonus points if you know the movie reference without Googling it. And as far as the XRP dominance percentage getting as high as 30%, yeah, so it has been, XRP dominance has been over 30% of the entire market. That's right, XRP has been at a point where it's been roughly 1/3 of the entire crypto asset class. That has been true in the past, very briefly. Now, I'm actually honestly not expecting that it's going to get that high in terms of percentage, because back when that happened, there were less than 2,000 cryptocurrencies. Now there are over 20,000. So there's more places that money can go, making it harder for any individual coin to have a bigger percent. That's why you're never going to see Bitcoin at, like, for instance, 95% of the market again. There's more competition out there. So it stands to reason. Now, that said, it doesn't matter. Directionally, it will still increase. I'm just kind of wondering to what degree. What actually matters is what XRP is going to be priced, what it's going to be worth against the United States dollar or whatever your fiat currency of choice is. And regardless of the dominance percentage, which is clearly going the right direction so far, I think higher. I think it's safe to say higher. I think that's fair. So there's a lot to look forward to. So when all sorts of analysts are saying, hey, XRP's outperforming, and hey, XRP looks like it's the most prime coin in the market, I understand why they're saying these things. And so we'll find out what happens together, but I think it makes all the sense in the world to be optimistic, incredibly optimistic over the short to midterm. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.